Hey, it's Elia. Before today's show, we need to say that Talkhouse believes that Black Lives Matter. As individuals, we've been out at protests and contributing to many organizations, including Minnesota Freedom Fund, Brooklyn Community Bail Project, Philadelphia Community Bail Fund, George Floyd's Family's GoFundMe, Eat Chicago, Assata's Daughters, and the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. We encourage our listeners to donate if you can, and if you're out in the streets, please stay safe. We stand with you. And now, a new poem by dear friend of the Talkhouse, Yrsa Daley-Ward, titled Making the End.
We want to know how the story ends. Another Black human, barbarically extinguished, historically slaughtered, forced into the ground, in public. All of the cameras and all of our phones and all the computers saw it. We want to know that the story ends. We're making the end.
Hi, this is Carrie Brownstein.
This is DJ Premier.
This is Darren Aronofsky.
You got the RZA right here.
Rose McGowan.
Radiohead.
Aisha Tyler.
Tribe Called Quest.
Fred Armisen.
Prince Paul.
Javier Munoz.
Seth Meyers.
Frankie Cosmos.
Flying Lotus.
Hi, we're Chaim, and you're listening to the Talkhouse Podcast.
What's up? What is up? This is Elia Einhorn. Welcome back to the Talkhouse Podcast. To help me intro today's episode, joining me from Chicago, we have...
Josh Modell, executive editor. What is up, Elia?
Hey, man. Great to hear your voice.
You as well.
On today's show, we feature Helado Negro in conversation with Buscabulla. This was Talkhouse Podcast's very first time doing a live talk via Instagram Live, and it was dope. Loads of folks tuned in from around the world. They were throwing up the flags and sent a ton of love in the comments.
There were hearts nonstop. It was a beautiful thing.
Smash that heart. Roberto Carlos Lang is the incredibly prolific artist that goes by the moniker Helado Negro. That translates to black ice cream. And I genuinely believe he is one of the most interesting minds in music right now. While he's originally from South Florida, Roberto really made his name in NYC and became a leading light in what in this talk is referred to as, quote, everybody in New York that makes weird music in Spanish. Born to Ecuadorian immigrant parents, Roberto explores Latinx identity and is the creator of the wonderful song and t-shirt, Young, Latin, and Proud. You'll see artists like Downtown Boys, Hooray for the Riff Raff, and so many other Latinx artists rocking that t-shirt.
Yeah, he's incredible. Sonically, he favors atmospheric electronics, deconstructed samples, and gentle guitars. Our producer, Mark Yoshizumi, calls it musical anti-anxiety medicine, which seems about right.
I love it. Perfection. That is truly what Roberto creates. Roberto is insanely prolific. His most recent Helado Negro record was last year's This Is How You Smile. Since then, we've had a ton of projects, including Antiphony. That's a Trey Pollard track that Roberto remixed. He also did an Helado Negro remix of Devendra Banhart's Love Song. Helado Negro's most recent single is a collaboration with another Talkhouse favorite, Xenia Rubinos. The track is called I Fell in Love. Let's check it out.
Spaceship shapers fly through all worlds unheard. Just the same.
Gorgeous stuff. And of course, Roberto is an inveterate collaborator. One of his favorite groups to work with is Buscabulla.
Yeah, Buscabulla is the Puerto Rican experimental pop duo comprised of husband and wife Raquel Berrios and Luis Alfredo del Valle. With inspiration from bachata, reggaeton, indie rock, and salsa, Buscabulla effortlessly marry hooky electro with slick funk.
Yeah, the couple left New York to return to their native Puerto Rico 2 years ago and have settled in Aguadilla. That's a town on the western coast. Their debut album, Regresa, just dropped last month. That was recorded at their home studio in Puerto Rico and was really informed by the difficulties that the couple saw their country dealing with. As they share, they saw a lack of opportunity, deep class divisions, and the rise of religious fanaticism.
And yet, Buscabulla somehow still makes national self-doubt and anxiety danceable.
They do. As Raquel says, Regresa is about acceptance of oneself with all our imperfections and the acceptance of being back in Puerto Rico with all its flaws. Besides Helado Negro, there are some very cool collaborators on this LP.
Yeah, they talk a lot in this conversation about Nick Hakim, who apparently had a huge influence on the record, as well as Patrick from Chairlift, who mixed it.
Let's check out the album's opening cut, Vámonos. That is a beautiful call to action. I love this record.
So good.
Something else that's so good, Josh, this talk. Helado Negro and Buscabulla get into a lot here. We hear about the way they've integrated family into their musical careers. Buscabulla bring their daughter Charlie along for recording dates and shows, and Roberto collaborates with his wife Christy Sword, who's a visual artist.
Yeah, and of course, we couldn't possibly have this talk without talking about the quarantine and what it's like to release your long-awaited debut right in the middle of it.
For sure. And they also get into the elements of New York City that Buscabulla really want to recreate in Puerto Rico.
We hear about the wand alarm.
And why Nick Hakim is really Neo from The Matrix.
It's a deep conspiracy theory.
Let's roll the tape.
All right.
What's up?
Wow. Hey, what's up, man?
How are you guys? So good to see your faces.
Likewise.
Que bellos. It's interesting to know that you're having a conversation and other people are like...
Lurking.
Whoa,
Yeah,
okay.
we're like we've never actually done a live, so we're losing our like live virginity right now with you.
Me too.
Very
I
strange.
mean, I've been here before.
So weird.
I'll guide you through the process.
Nice.
Thank you.
You're suntan.
I'm in Texas, but y'all are tan too. I mean, you can't help it.
Yeah, it is what it is. I mean, I
Wait,
guess.
are you still in Marfa? Are you still in Marfa?
Yeah, so I'm in Texas still. I'm in Marfa. Been here since March 4th, and it's crazy. I mean, it's great that we're here, but it's not that we can't leave. I think it's just New York is so difficult
Yeah.
to get to at this point, and getting there just to make the effort to get there. Yeah, it's just kind of crazy. So we're here, you know?
Yeah.
Are you glad that you're there during the quarantine?
I am.
Yeah, it's
I'm
chill,
really
right?
hearing from friends and the amount of anxiety and kind of wildness that it all brought.
How's your mind been and stuff?
It's good. I mean, Christy and I have been luckily able to focus on this project that we're here doing for a place, an institution here called Ballroom Marfa. And we're lucky to have a project to just be focused on, you know?
I hear you.
So how does it feel for y'all right now? I feel like you guys moved to Puerto Rico during a time where it felt like Puerto Rico was experiencing a lot of traumatic stuff, and now like there's like a lot more like rehashing of that like trauma and like those feelings of just like everyone's like, yo, again we have to like
Yeah. I mean,
It's the 4th season of Puerto Rico Se Levanta, as some people say. Like, the first season, no, I know. I read this and I'm like, damn, like, when's the Netflix show coming? The first was Hurricane Maria. Then it was all the protests, the summer protests, the Ricky Renuncia protests. Then we got an earthquake in January.
well, couple. Yeah, like a couple.
Yeah, I mean, there's still aftershocks. And then La Pandemia. I mean, it's sort of like...
Yeah, I
I
mean, it's
mean-
crazy. It's weird. Also, I'm almost feeling like I was really worried, right when we started seeing all the news coming out of like Wuhan and all that stuff, and we were like, wow, oh my God, you know, like
We were actually
I don't
in
even
New
know
York.
how the government here would even handle like that. I would genuinely scared because so many disasters had been mishandled, you know.
yeah.
But I think in a way, maybe it's like a trial by fire kind of thing. And luckily, I don't know if it was out of like just like the only resource that was available here, but they shut down the entire country like as
Yeah.
soon as was humanly possible.
Yeah, March 13th. We've
Eh,
like We've been on lockdown, like curfew at 7 p.m.
Right. So like
Damn.
a little bit before almost every other city started doing it, we were already in lockdown. And so, yeah, I don't know if maybe the past emergencies have sort of, acclimatized people to this really intense way of living. But it honestly feels at least like there's a lot going on. There's a lot of people obviously going through like intense hardship, but within the intensity, Puerto Rico hasn't had as many deaths supposedly, and all that
but we
stuff.
don't really know.
Yeah.
We don't really know. I don't think anybody
yeah.
knows. It's a pretty chaotic time, I have to say. I mean, I'm like you. I mean, we're focused on putting this record out, and we'd never imagined that we were gonna put it out during this pandemic. It's kind of insane, but I don't know. I've been kind of spiritual about it. I'm kind of like, well, this is what the universe wanted. There must be a secret meaning of putting music out during this time. Like, there must be some mission that we must accomplish. We just hope that the interesting thing is that the record is so much about like angst and feeling trapped, and the record is a transitional record. I mean, we moved back to a place that was unrecognizable, beautiful, kind of how we remembered, but so many other things that weren't, so many things that aren't right. And so I think that that's probably what everybody's thinking right now. There's so much to fix, I mean, in our countries and especially in the States, and just sort of seeing what's happening right now, where the world is at and where the environment is at. It's such like a big deal. Like such a huge stop can only really make us kind of like think about it. So I don't know. I hope that people find solace in the record, that people can connect to it, that they might have a little bit more time to sit with it now. I mean, let's see what happens. I don't know. It's scary too. I don't know.
Yeah. Do you think that's been like a recurring question? I feel like right now it's like, and I think we should be fun to like deviate from this at some point. But I feel like right now it's like what to talk about. It's like everyone is kind of experiencing in this.
It
in
is
the same
very
way.
collective. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
I feel like because of like this isolation, it seems like maybe you guys are maybe even discovering more about the record. I mean, when I listen to the record, I hear stuff just because I know you. But I also hear things that I'm like, damn, like, do I just hear it differently now? Because I'm like, everyone's kind of like in this state of mind, Are you hearing it differently, do you think?
I mean, it's funny. I was talking to a friend of mine who's actually working on a record, and he's like, damn, like, I don't even know if what I've worked on this far is even relevant anymore, because the world will probably be a completely different place. And it was really funny when he said that. And then I'm like, let me sit and think about this record. And the record kind of already shows, to me, I think it only proves more my sadness or whatever kind of transformation I have in the record, which people will hear. I think it's still completely relevant. And I think that maybe we haven't really been great for a while. Like, the pandemic is only here to kind of highlight what was already very wrong. So I don't think that it's like a big surprise. So the record just kind of is about that, and now the pandemic maybe is just kind of highlighting that even more, I hope. I mean,
Yeah. We've talked about this privately. And I think maybe a lot of people who are like watching this maybe don't know what it takes to like promote a record or like talk about it. And this is like your first album, your debut album.
How many albums have you put out, Roberto?
A lot.
Do you know how many?
For Helado Negro, I don't know, maybe like 6 or 7, something.
But in your life?
A lot. Like more than 12,
Wow.
13, 14. I don't know. But I think it's different. I mean,
It's
like,
wild.
I think it's so cool to see how y'all have done it in terms of like the EPs, and like I love the way the new record feels in terms of like using the EPs as context, And I guess the question is, for me, when you were working on this record, what did it feel like to like move away from like putting out like 4 songs to like making something that was like, how many? Hold on, let me see how many songs it is. You should know this. It's 11 songs.
Woo!
Upgrade.
How did that feel? Like, you're like, holy shit, we got to fill this thing up.
It was hard. I think we just think about it too much, but I think it's part of putting a first record out. It's so dear to you and so precious. And I remember one time you were at home and you were saying like, you guys think about this too much. This song is done. Like
Move on.
just move on to the next idea. And I think that we're probably learning that the more that we do music and records, the more we learn about that. I think that before we were we would sit with it and think about it so much, and then it kind of takes all the fun out of it,
Definitely.
I don't know. I mean, how are you fast? Because we're not fast at all. We take forever and we talk about it and we analyze it, and it's is this really what we want to do? Is this really, I don't know,
Then Raquel asks.
I don't know if it's because it's the two of us, and then we're constantly. I don't know if it's just you working on music, you just don't think about it and you enjoy the moment.
Trust your own instinct and just keep going.
And I'm stubborn for sure. I think that what you're saying is your dynamic is and I've seen y'all work and I've talked to you about it, and it's your approach is completely not different, but I think it shows how you both work so good together. I remember working on I remember working on Frio with you guys, and it made me so excited because I was cool, this process is so different to me to just hear you lay it out in a very conceptual way, what your intention is with the song, and to know that you had something that you wanted to focus on from beginning to end for direction, but then also there was aesthetic and technical things that you wanted to kind of achieve within it too. For me, I'm not working like that. I don't see the form. I don't make a maquette of it and then be well, this is the idea, and then we're gonna build this shit into this giant building, And I think both of you work in that respect. You complement that with each other, and I think that's it's an admirable process. And I think that's why your songs on those EPs and on the record are so good, because I think with the EPs you were just building these different foundational ideas for the sound that you wanted to kind of fully show to the world, be yo, this is our debut record. This is our shit,
Hey, it's Elia again. We here at Talkhouse are really psyched to work with a company like Allbirds. I wear Allbirds running shoes, but my faith in the company was doubled when they asked us to pull the ad that we'd recorded for this week and sent us this statement in its place. Normally, this sponsored read would focus on what Allbirds does as a business and talk about one of our new products. But there's something much more important happening in our country and around the world right now. Acknowledging injustice is not the kind thing to do, it's the right thing to do. As a business, Allbirds has always stood for the planet, and standing for the planet also means standing for its people. We believe that everyone should be able to enjoy all the Earth has to offer without fearing for their lives because of the color of their skin. And while we admit that we're not entirely sure what the right thing to do is at a time like this, we know that just stating our support isn't enough. We need to take action. As a first step, Allbirds has contributed to organizations like the National Movement for Black Lives and the NAACP Legal Defense Fund to support their efforts. We encourage you to demand change and make your voices heard. Black Lives Matter.
Has your process changed? How is it different from that? Because sometimes I can't even imagine how other musicians work, and it's not until I kind of see them work, I'm oh.
There is another way.
You could do it that way. Do you feel like your process is the same, or has it changed a lot from when you started making music?
I don't know. You know what I do? I think it seems like I make a lot of things really quickly, but I just write and record a lot over time. And as one thing finishes, something begins, and then maybe a year or 2 or 3 or 5 years later, that thing finishes. So it's kind of these long timelines of overlapping ideas that never necessarily are this moment of focused time. It's these things that have been kind of happening. And then you also have the amazing moment where you make something and you're like, damn, I can't believe we just wrote that in 2 days. That's crazy.
Yeah.
And that's that special thing. But my process is not, it's far from the maquette, the more often than not, it always has existed in some form or another in the way you've heard. You're hearing it at the end. So it's usually the same sounds are there always, or almost always,
Got it.
I wanted to ask you, you collaborated on one of the songs in the record that's coming up, Club Tu y Yo, and I think you were on the road, right? When you did the arrangements, were you on the road when you sent that in, or were you at your house?
Probably, yeah. The last year was fucking crazy. But yeah.
I never got to ask you how you guys got to, did you go to a studio in the middle?
Do you even remember?
Like, do you remember? Because this is what happens when you collaborate remotely with people. You kind of ask them for something and this thing shows up, but you have no idea what the process was behind it or anything.
Well, you sent a few songs. I think you sent Nidia, right? And then you sent maybe a version of something. I don't know if it was like NTE or is it NTE or?
Yeah. It's NTE.
But I think it was
MTV.
right? MTV.
I think you sent 3 jams. 2 of them, I was like, oh shit. I was like, in my mind, I was like, yo, I want to work on Nidia. And I was like, this shit's dope. And you're like, yeah, so we're working on that. But, and I was like, oh, okay. But I was kind of stoked about that song. But then when you sent Club Tuyo, I was feeling it. Because I think I'm trying to remember some of the references we talked about. I was trying to remember that earlier today. Like, did we reference, like, did someone say Pimpinela or something?
Oh,
no,
yes.
we never said that.
Yeah, we did say Pimpinela.
Okay, I couldn't remember if we said that or not, but I remember that being like, obviously a jam, like them being some shit I grew up with, and then like it was cool to have like that reference point.
Was Pimpinela heard at your house when you grew up?
Yeah, but it was also like maybe heard more like on TV whenever there was like
Yeah.
The TV was always on and there was like whatever, some special on and they're performing or some shit,
Yeah, they're dope songwriters.
Hell yeah.
It's such a different era of music, right?
I think you nailed it with that song is the thing. And that song brings like this like really specific feeling of like, it's like someone describes something to you and you want to understand it. The words are all right there and you understand the feeling, but you can't actually like put your hand on what it is. I feel like that's what that song does to me. Cool. I get transported to a moment in my life somewhere and I'm like, it's like I can't pinpoint it, but I know it's like deep inside my life somewhere, and it's like it feels comfortable, it feels like a room in a house that I've lived in, and I think that's why I really loved it, and I think working on it was cool because it's always like the people that I love. Someone else, yes, Pimpinela was a thing in mi casa.
I saw that.
And then there's a Carlos R. Lange saying, how are you doing?
Oh, well,
that's my dad.
Well,
nice.
Did you know about this? Pimpinela were brothers. That's crazy.
No, I didn't know that.
But I think weren't they all always like
I
the
thought
husband
the thing was
and
that they were
wife
like a pair.
in the
I had no
songs?
idea.
That's wild.
They're like the Carpenters.
Wow, they were brother and sister. That's wild. Are you working on any music? You're not working on music, aren't you?
Yeah, we are. I am.
Are you working on music with Christy?
Kind of. For this project, she's been making these like graphic scores and
Sweet.
And working with some musicians in town to interpret some of the graphic scores for this compilation that's going to come out with Ballroom Marfa, but also there's scores for the piece of the documentation that we're doing of like all the different like light and wind sculptures and video that we're making out here.
That sounds
there's
so
a
dope.
lot. There's a lot to talk about with that.
I
but
wish I could go there right
time.
now.
Is that for later? I can't wait to hear about it.
I wish I could go to
I mean, it's
Marfa
worth our
right
time, but it's just too much time.
Yeah.
Marfa's so dope.
It is. Marfa is super, super dope. It is a beautiful town. It's like, I think we're about an hour from the border from Ojinaga, which is a smaller town in Mexico. And, it's a brown town. It's, mostly people of like descendants of like Mexican people, Mexican American, multiple generations deep, So it's kind of beautiful to kind of like have an opportunity to be here for a longer period of time. It was like not our intention to be here that long, but it was kind of
right.
We're here now.
Yeah, you really got the full experience.
Yeah. Yeah, you really now, it's like you're living there.
We are. I've actually been recording a ton of music.
Nice.
And mixing and a lot of other like secret surprises.
Ooh.
But we've enjoyed the experience here more than anything. And it's kind of wild. It's like someone said it was like the beach without water.
It's really beautiful.
You've been, or you haven't been?
We got to go there twice, and the second time we actually played, we played a 2% Buscabulla set.
For two people.
Yeah, I don't remember
Where
the name
was
of the
that?
bar. It was do you remember the name of the bar?
It was like a real
We-
Western themed
The
bar.
Lone Horse?
Yeah.
What was the what?
The Lone Horse? Or
Probably.
something? The
Lone
Last
Horse,
Yes,
Horse?
that's it. Yeah, that's the one.
What's it called? I don't even know.
Yeah. And we and we got to play, but it was so dope because we like toured the whole thing, and just the desert is just so magical.
Yeah.
You know, we're a little bit bummed out because we're supposed to go on tour in July, and we don't really know what's gonna happen, you know, and we were supposed to like
Yeah, like our highlight in the mind was going through that, you know, the southwest of the country and stuff, and it might not happen, you know?
Yeah, and so I mean, I'm okay with it. I mean, I don't know, like I know you tour a lot, and you know,
The
like
Lost Horse. Somebody
Lost Horse.
just clarify that it's
Thank you,
not.
Sarah. It's
That's
the
Sarah
Lost
Vasquez.
Horse. Thank you.
She's a local.
Not Lone
Say what's
Horse,
up
the
to
Lost
Sarah.
Horse. We don't even know, like, I wanted to kind of talk to you about it. Like, it's such a crazy time to be a musician right now, like touring and like gatherings. Like, we don't even know what's going to be up. Like, how do you feel about it? Because I know you tour a lot. I don't know if this makes you feel relieved or does it worry you, or like, how do you feel about it, you know?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's for the best, but for me at least, in terms of like, I rely on it it's like the largest percent of my income is like performing.
Yeah, same.
And I think like 2/3 of my income just went away overnight, and I think
Wow.
you know, it's just like all touring and playing shows, and so I think there was like an initial shock and kind of like a worry and anxiety, but I think I've kind of come to terms with it and like tried to like figure out like what it is I can do to like survive.
Yeah.
More than anything, I'm just waiting and seeing and not trying to anticipate and not trying to predict and not trying to be working in like hypotheticals, just like being like realistic, being like, yo, if it's got to be canceled, it's got to be canceled.
Yeah.
And if we have to do it next year, maybe that's for the best, and instead of trying to like, it's almost like worse to have this feeling that things keep getting postponed and rescheduled. Like, okay, November, everything will be better, you know, back to and you're like, really, like at this point, it's like, why are we like trying to work so hard at like hoping that something is going to change that we have no control over? It's like, you might as well just like change it. I mean, for me, for certain things that I'm like dealing with, I'm like, we might as well just like release some of the anxiety that people have, so we can kind of like know that like, hey, like maybe let's just build towards next year, as opposed to being so caught up in like trying to make things happen that we have like zero control over.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
like what you were saying about like the spiritual feeling of like knowing that like there's so many things happening, and like I've been thinking about that a lot. Like, what's my connection with myself? And I feel like there's like this healing moment. Like I think I toured way too much last year, and like I got like super sick, and like all these things happened to me, and I'm like, so in a way this was like great. Like this is the first time my body and my brain have like recovered from like so much, you know,
Wow.
like
Yeah.
just so many things. And I know like y'all have these plans to like this big push, and it's kind of like, it's hard because I can't believe that it's like, you know, timing is the worst sometimes like with this stuff. And I think like y'all had so much planned, and how are you feeling about like, do you think like just waiting, or do you feel like hoping, or I don't know, like
We got the wand alarm.
Oh, wait, sorry.
Sorry, we had.
Sorry, our video got paused because we get this emergency alert to tell everybody that curfew is coming at 7 p.m. in Puerto Rico.
Oh, shit.
Sorry.
So the entire neighborhood
We call
beams
it,
and
real
we
here.
call it
rings
La
at
Wanda
6:30.
Alarma.
The wand alarm.
Because the governor of Puerto Rico, she's called Wanda. And sorry, there's a helicopter now. It's chaotic out here.
No.
Sorry.
Shit
We
is
live
real
right
in Puerto
next
Rico.
to the airport. I don't know. I mean, it broke my heart. I mean, I was definitely really excited. I mean, when you record a record, it's just one aspect of your whole, this little universe that you're creating. And when you go and you present it live, it's like you're just giving people like another dimension. You know, it's opportunities to kind of rework arrangements for your songs, you know, extend them. You can actually kind of put like a dance or like a wardrobe and lighting, like a show to your music. And then just the coming together of people. I mean, that that's the part that kind of breaks my heart. But in another sense, I'm sort of like, I don't know, like maybe this is a new opportunity to connect with people more intimately, and technology now is changing so much, sometimes for good and sometimes for bad. But I mean, what would we do without this technology in this moment right now? You know what I mean? Where we have to literally be isolated. And so I'm always interested in when things are kind of weird and tough and apretada, as we say, to kind of like creativity.
Like a song of yours on the new
exactly.
record.
Featured on the upcoming.
I don't know. I feel like, I mean, I come from a design background, and I always felt that the lower the budget for the project or the fewer materials you had, the better ideas you would come up with. Like I'm excited about doing a lot with a little.
That's awesome.
Maybe it'll be more intimate. Maybe like we just did a live session in the backyard for a radio station in France, and it's coming out tomorrow. And then it's like we'd never really done something like that, and like have people be in our backyard, and like we kind of rearranged some of our songs for it, and it was really fun. I have to say, I was telling Luis, like, I really like this, and it feels like maybe like that's what people are gonna do, and I'm kind of just excited how people are gonna create and use sort of this medium now. Like, I feel like it's gonna be pushed to another level. I'm still scared. We really don't know what's gonna happen. And on top of that, like, we're in Puerto Rico, which makes it even more chaotic and crazy.
This is like my favorite thing about always talking with y'all, because there's always like these moments of like complete optimism in terms of just like embracing. And I think that's like something to like take away from like all of this is like, how can we embrace like all this stuff that's happening without like having to like focus on the shit that is supposed to happen? It's
right.
like, if it's not supposed to happen, or if it can't happen, it's not supposed to happen, and like now you're like talking about this dope ass like little live session that you that you like recorded in your backyard, and even like context, right? Like, if you were living in New York, it may have been like a whole different situation. And like the fact that you have like this backyard, or like, it's like looking out and looking at all of these possibilities that you're like creating for yourself within this, like this moment. And I think maybe it even speaks to like the resilience of like y'all going there with expectations of like not even knowing how the country was going to be, And I think that's like amazing, Yeah,
we kind of knew. We knew, this is going to take years to fix. But we kind of wanted to be a part of that. We wanted to be here for the transformation. Like, we wanted to make art here. New York is such a wonderful place, but it wasn't the place for us anymore. I still admire the city, and I'm so excited by all our musician and creative friends that live out there that are like working so hard. And our love and our admiration for New York will always be there. And I feel like New York just taught us so much, and things that we actually want to like apply here. There's so much community and so many sort of organizations, so much support. It was really inspiring to just be out there, and I only want to take all those things and like bring them here, and make it a better place. So we kind of knew that it wasn't going to be easy, but I'm so much more in peace ever since I moved back, even though it's a chaotic place. New York is pretty chaotic too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I guess at this point, the entire world is chaos. So
yeah, what's funny is there's no... I do think about you, and I'm like, damn, he's in Texas in the desert. You know what I mean? Like, it's got to be maybe even better than here. We can't even go to the beach. Can you walk, like, to the desert?
We can walk. Yeah, I think there's something to be said about being in the middle of nowhere in some respects. Like, this is somewhere, but I think in comparison to, like, cities per se, it's like... resource-wise, this is a small place, and it's not necessarily close to a larger city. Like El Paso is like
4 hours.
I think like 4 hours away, and you know the feeling here. It's like, it's nighttime and it's dark, and you're like, whoa, there's nobody around, and it's like, it's different. And there's moments where it feels like ghost towny, and then maybe even more so the effect of the people like
right in quarantine,
isolating. But it's exciting because more time with the people you love, if you've got them around you. I think it's like, for us, it's been a lucky time.
Have you been
I think we're-
happy? Have you been like happy that you've had all this time and you're not like touring and that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's
Yeah.
special. I think it's like, you know, you carve out so many nuanced moments that maybe you've been missing out on in terms of like just being on the road. And I think it's like being on the road is strange. It's a necessity in terms of like what we do, but it's also like not necessarily the thing you need, you know?
If you could just make records and not tour, like if we lived in a moment, like
If you could be the studio Beatles.
if you could be the studio Beatles, like would you just live that life? You know what I mean? Like, or you would miss touring.
I think touring is fun. And I think being in a different city with friends that you like is really fun. And I think performing shows is amazing. It's so much fun. Like the production of it is so much fun and it's like exciting. I think there's like, you know, the doldrums of like being on the road for long periods of time and like all the in-between moments of like trying to fill time and then like trying to have connections with loved ones via like telephone, or you're just kind of like stealing time from moments that like that don't exist. So I think that's the hardest thing about it. So I don't know. I think it's like, I would love to be able to just like know that it could be very limited, you know? And I think that's possible, but maybe not at this moment, you know?
Sure.
Yeah, I hear you.
Drive-in tours, bro.
I want to ask y'all a question now. I just wanted to know all the people that collaborated on this record. And I know Luis Bairoa was on this record.
Yes. All over.
But who else was on this record?
Yeah, actually, it was super fun to just have Luista come over because Luista's very particular. You know, he has his dogs and, you know, he really likes his bed and his shower. So I was really appreciative that he would come over. It was like our way of getting him to come over.
It was our way of bribing him to come over.
And it was really, really fun. Like before, like we were in New York and he was in Puerto Rico and we couldn't collaborate. So now he would come over and like, you know, I think we had like about like a month and a half or 2 months where he would come almost like every weekend, and he was out here and it was like really, really fun to work on it. But also the summer that we started working, Nick Hakim, we kind of bribed him and we said, if we pay you a ticket to come and we show you the island, like, would you come and help us write, produce?
Who says no to that, you know?
And he was psyched. And I mean, we're such big fans. You know, we're in awe of his talent. I mean, he's like so great. He understands music in a really different way.
He's like Neo from The Matrix, but with music.
Yeah, he
you know, he like sees it in the walls.
He kind of feels music very differently.
I'm serious.
Yeah, it's wild. I mean, he's from another planet. So it was really, really, really fun to have him over. And it was, you know, like Charlie in the studio, or a little girl, and like, you know, he was playing the piano in the living room and Charlie was dancing. It was like really, really beautiful. And then, you know, we would take breaks and we would take him to the beaches nearby. We took him to San Juan. We took him to this really famous bomba place called Bonanza in San Juan with dope rumba and bomba. It was like great that he was down here. And he's sort of in the record, but he's kind of like hiding, you know, like he helped write.
He's like the ghost in the machine.
Yeah.
He's like, in there in ways that you might not perceive, but he's definitely in there.
He's like, he did these talk box things with the guitar on the track called El Aprieto, and he helped write.
That song is dope, by the way. That's like one of my favorites.
So those weird talk box sounds, that's Nick. That's Nick doing his thing on it. Yeah, it was super fun.
That's cool.
Because I guess for talkbox, you know, you have to know the chord. You have to like,
you have to be good at the guitar enough to be playing it.
You have to sing the chord that you're like playing. You know, it's like
again?
I can't do that shit. I'm like, I can't make the talk box work. I mean, I can't. But he did that, and he helped write Mio, and then he sings like this little snippet at one of the ending songs called
We won't give it away. We don't give it away. Just to see if people
But
find
it's his voice. It's his silky, silky voice. His smoky, silky voice at the end. Who else is on this record? Patrick Wimberly from Chairlift mixed it. It was kind of wild to go back to New York and mix it with him. And we were like such huge Chairlift fans. Like we actually went to the farewell show and I cried and I couldn't believe it because Chairlift was one of those bands that like really inspired us when we were like in New York. And the whole kind of DIY scene, that non-existing New York DIY scene of, you know, the mid 2000s that was so magical, like such a magical time for New York music, you know. I feel like it's changed a lot, but I don't know, you're more close to it, but I mean that whole era of like Lorelli and Presov and Chairlift and all these like great bands, and you were around too, like it was a really special time. And so getting to work with Patrick was wild, you know. And I think in one of the sessions Caroline came in and I was like, you know, I couldn't believe it that she was there.
Oh, man.
I think that there was a whole like full circle. JD, who's our current drum player, like he did timbales, he did bongos. He got busy with the Latin percussion. I think that's it, right? And then you were on the Club Tu y Yo. You did the arrangements, which are so beautiful.
Yeah.
That we kind of chopped up.
And the two players on that are the two people who tour with me, Angela Morris and Nathaniel Morgan. So they played, you know, the strings and the horns on that. And they're
Angela
dope.
plays the strings?
She plays strings and also saxophone.
Oh, wow.
But,
amazing. Oh, cool.
But on that one, I think she only did strings, and I think Nathaniel just played the saxophone on that. Yeah.
I love that you were touring, and like the arrangement that you had for that tour was just so beautiful. I mean, your last record was just so beautiful.
Yeah, it's really special, man.
I don't think a lot of people know that y'all sang on my last record.
Oh, yeah.
We're like the Nick Hakim of your record.
Yeah, we're like the ghost. And people would text me, and they're like, are you singing on this song? And then some people would even tell me like another track, and I'm like, no, I'm not on that.
Yo, but if anyone wants to hear this story, I'm gonna tell just a portion of it. I was mixing the song, and like, it's one of those things where it was like y'all had left, and I don't even remember why I think you were playing like a private show or something, and I was in New York. A friend of mine had lent me a studio in Manhattan, and I had been mixing in this like kind of like Lux studio, and just like gifted this opportunity. Shout out to Herd City, who I love, and they've always been this biggest sweethearts to help me out. And I remember I was just like trying to just like reel you both in somehow into like being in the record, and I could tell it was like not easy, but y'all were just like, fuck it, we're gonna make this happen, and like whatever happens, you know? And I remember it was like this moment, it was like, we kind of went through a bunch of different talks about like direction, and I had like a very specific intention with it. And I just remember it was so people know what song it is. It's the last song on the record called Todo Lo Que Me Falta. And I just remember we're working on this, and y'all are singing the very like quiet part at the end that says Quédate que hay luz. And I just remember like Charlie just sleeping throughout her whole hang, like pretty much like Charlie.
She did not even perceive that we were in that studio. She had
Charlie was sleeping peacefully in the couch.
You guys arrived and Charlie was passed out, and then she was just out on the couch. We ate like pizza or some shit. I don't even remember what we ate. It was just kind of like this whole moment, and I really cherish that so much, because I feel like I don't know, that's like what I really live for, is like having that experience of like sharing and making, and just like having like a nice, like something that is deep within like the organism of the record, you know? So I don't know. That's what I was feeling. So anyone who didn't know that they were on the record.
It was a beautiful memory. I think it's, I mean, it's still a really special song for me to hear, and I get emotional when I hear it.
Yeah,
so.
And Charlie sleeping in couches nearby while we work on music is... It doesn't happen all the time, but it happens. But I'm still...
Now she's mainly just mad at us.
I'm just
looking at us mad. Like, come on.
I'm happy that she's integrated into our creative process. I mean, some people don't even choose to do that with their kids.
You've adjusted well, Charlie. You've passed phase one.
Charlie, I mean, she's been a little mad at us because she's in quarantine now, and like we gotta keep her entertained, and we've been so busy just finishing so much stuff for the release, and we're kind of like, it's just so important to connect with your kids, you know, right now, but it's so hard, you know what I mean? So we just try and integrate her. I mean, there's no other way. I mean, I kind of see like in different cultures how, you know, kids kind of, they're like strapped to their mom's back while they're working and all this stuff. So it's like, I think it's a good thing. I would think that it would be a good thing for her to see, you know what I mean? Like that she's completely integrated, you know?
For me, you guys are a super huge inspiration in terms of like how you've been able to integrate like a family aspect into like a creative process, into like working a record, into like everything that you're doing with it. And I think that's like super special. And it's a whole new level of hard for people who are like, oh, making music, this is so hard to sell tickets. You're just like, yo, making music so hard to sell tickets. I got to figure out like Charlie's fucking hungry right now at sound check. You know what I mean? Like, it's not just the stresses of being a musician. You know, I think it's like the responsibility of being a parent is like, it sets like a whole new precedent in terms of like how you have to like actually be in this world. And I think from my like perspective, like I feel like it really affects your music. And that's why, not just because you don't have time, but I think you take your time because you're like, you're not trying to rob time from anywhere. You're like, this is time, I'm doing this, and now we're gonna work on music. And I feel like that's why so much of your music is like shaped in advance, because you're like, yo, we have to create this time and make it not just like be effective or just use it wisely. I think you have to like know what you're gonna like be working on in that moment, even if it doesn't work or it doesn't, you know, does work. But just to kind of like, just to like end this thought was I want to share another anecdote with some folks. If people are willing to hear this. So we went on tour a long time ago in like 2016, and
our first and only tour so far.
Your tour is coming. Wait, that shit's gonna be dope. And I remember like, you know, Charlie was like sleeping in the backstage or just like passed out, and just seeing how that's like a whole different level of responsibility. And I was just like, man, y'all are the best. I was just like, this is amazing how much this takes. I just want people to understand that this is like a product of the environment.
Yeah.
In terms of like being, you know, in backstages, and sometimes backstages really suck. And I remember that backstage that we had in Baltimore. Do you remember this? No?
I do.
How could we remember that penis? The penis theme, wallpaper drawings.
There was not a spot on that wall without a dick drawn on it.
It's funny. Like, did you ever rehearse at the sweatshop?
In New York, yeah, in Brooklyn.
Because the punk room, it's the same thing. It's just penises.
But I do remember that show. I remember us being like I think that was the last one in that leg.
Yeah, it was the last one.
For us, you know, we played a whole 4 shows, a whopping 4 shows. And by the last one, we were like, oh my God, what is this? Look at this crazy backstage area. We're here with this baby. What are we doing, you know?
I know, we're like, what are we doing with our lives?
And then we went out into the stage. I remember that being the best show of the entire 4 days, and your show moving me like really beautifully, like it was something I'll remember forever, man. Yeah,
Luis wore one of your tinsel suits because you had a dancer bail on you. I remember.
I know, and I felt so, and I love you guys forever for this. I remember like being like, yo, like I know you guys were trying to drive back.
I think it was beautiful
Charlie.
Too. I thank you so
Charlie,
much.
I'm sorry.
I thank you. Dude, no, seriously, I thank you so much. Like, I feel like I love having this friendship with you. I think I remember like just connecting with you on Twitter, and I know that in New York, like everybody that makes kind of weird music in Spanish, I think we all already kind of have a connection, or just people with, you know, like Latino parents that are there. Like it's funny how we all just kind of gravitated towards each other, and you were one of the first, and you've always been like such a great like mentor to us, and we admire you so much. And I mean, I just want to keep collaborating with you forever.
As
you know
much
what
as
I mean?
possible.
Likewise. No, I love you guys so much. And yeah, you're the only band I've ever wanted to be in. So
Nice.
We could do it. I mean, I feel like after this record, I'm just feeling like a lot more unattached. And we could do whatever. Charlie, you want to say hi? You want to say hi before
Hola,
we say
Charlie.
bye?
¿Cómo estás?
Ven, dile hola.
We're almost done.
Just
Let's
say hi.
Bye.
Say hi.
Bye, bye.
¿Cómo estás, Charlie?
Hi.
Dile hola.
Hi.
Dile que estás bien, ¿y tú?
Estoy bien.
Okay, bueno.
Bueno.
I think we're running out of time.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I think this is...
¿Sabes que la voz de Chip es
Well, for those who just like tuned in, what'd she say? ¿Qué pasó?
Charlie's just sort of
She's
like
like, did you know that in Chip and Dale, the voice of Chip was voiced by a kid?
No.
All right. I'll let him know when
The
it's.
chip of Beauty and the Beast.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
The little club.
Okay. It's all good. Now I get it. I totally get it.
Anyway,
Okay,
Roberto,
gracias.
just
Bye.
thank you so much. We're so excited. We're so excited to show everybody like our latest collaboration.
Yeah.
We just have
Can't
to
wait.
collaborate on each record, like forever. But man, I
So-
can't wait for this whole thing to be over, for you to come over to Puerto Rico, play some shows here.
I just
have
want to hang
fun,
out.
Show you Aguadilla and all
Please.
the west side of Puerto Rico, which is our new home. And it's going to be dope.
Love you guys so much. Thanks
Love you,
for
man.
Gracias,
hanging
Roberto.
out.
Te queremos mucho.
Gracias a ti. Sí.
Let's keep
We'll-
supporting each other and trying to be creative through this crazy time. I think it's the only thing we can really do right now, you know?
Hell yeah. That's what we got. We got each other.
That's right.
We got each other, babe.
Okay.
Love
Bye.
you, man.
Love you guys so
Adios.
much.
Be well, everybody. Stay
Bye.
healthy. Bye-bye.
Adios.
Helado Negro, Buscabulla, thank you so much for joining us here on the Talkhouse Podcast. Listeners, if you enjoyed today's show, definitely check out Roberto's past episode with Sylvan Esso.
Another artist that came up in the talk today was Xenia Rubinos, who was also on the Talkhouse Podcast with Ladybug Mecca a while back. Check that out.
Yep, and also Caroline Polachek got name-checked. She's been on the show in a very cool live-scored episode with Neon Indian. You can find all of that on our SoundCloud page or talkhouse.com. Definitely, while you're at the site, make sure to check out our events tab. As I mentioned at the top, this was our very first Instagram Live. Since then, we've done one with Julian Baker and Katie Harkin of Slater Kinney and Chicano Batman chatting with Lido Pimienta. And we have a few more very cool things coming down the pipeline.
You can find the Talkhouse on all your favorite social channels at Talkhouse. The Talkhouse theme was composed and performed by The Range.
And listeners, everyone you heard today on the show has recorded themselves, from Puerto Rico to Marfa, Texas, Chicago to Philly. And in Ridgewood, Queens, our producer is the one and only Mark Yoshizumi.
Thanks so much to Samantha Small for helping us out with research on today's episode.
Till next week, I'm Elia Einhorn.
I'm Josh Modell.
Peace and pause.